We've come now to touch base in Seoul, and our guest this week is a writer and illustrator of picture books for children. Her latest work is called Sunday, Funday in Koreatown and was published in March. It's the latest in a series of books called Yoomi, Friends and Family. And the first two were called No Kimchi for Me and Let's Go to Taekwondo. As these titles suggest, the series not only explores the everyday adventures of a young girl named Yoomi, but they also celebrate Korean culture as well. Here to tell us about her works and her story, I'm delighted to say that Ms. Aram Kim joins us via video link from New York. Hello, Ms. Kim. It's great to have you on our show today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about these books, but before we get into them, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves for our listeners and how you came to write and illustrate books for children?
Sure. So, yeah, my name is Aram Kim. I'm an author and illustrator of children's picture books. I did go a very long route to be an author and illustrator. So I cannot share the life story of mine, but in short, I always loved writing and drawing as a kid, but that didn't actually come to me as a career for the longest time. So it took a really long time, a lot of exploration, lots of odd jobs until I realized that I did have a passion for making children's books. So yeah, so here I am.
So it came to you when you were an adult rather than something you started from when you were younger. I understand you started more when you moved to New York after living in Korea for most of your life.
That is correct. So I actually remember having a self-portrait as a homework assignment when I was a second grader in Korea. And in there, I am painting with like a typical beret of like artists that like children think of. And I remember being an artist was actually my very first dream that I would use as an answer to others when they ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then I kind of moved on to wanting to be a writer. But even as a kid, like even though no one told me, I did realize that making a living as an artist wouldn't be easy. So I just went on a very traditional route in a way, just to study like math, English, Korean, and just go on to middle school and high school and college. And it wasn't until I went to the United States to be studying as an exchange student for a year. And that's where I took art classes. And I realized that I really did want to pursue my dream as an artist again, as an adult. So it did take a really long time even after that, because I still needed to finish studying in Korea and I needed to prepare a portfolio to move to New York. And even then, it just didn't occur to me that children's book creator is a career path. So it really just took a lot of trials and errors.
Sure, you got there in the end, and then in 2016 you published your first book called Cat on the Bus, and it tells the story of a stray cat that finds its way onto a bus. How did you come up with that story for your first book, and what was it like to get that book published?
It was actually inspired by this photo that I saw online years ago before I started working on a book. I saw this blurry photo of a stray cat sitting on a bus seat. Actually, the photo was taken in South Korea. I saw it in a Korean portal website as a short article. I think the original photo was shared on Twitter, I think. And the person or the caption said that it was cold outside and the bus driver let the cat on the bus because it was really cold. And I just thought it was such a heartwarming story that showed the genuine kindness of people. So that photo stayed in my head for years and years. And when I was in grad school working on children's book as a thesis, that photo came back to me and I just made a story out of the photo. And also I had a cat at the time of my own. She was also from the shelter, and I always imagined what her life might have been on the street before she ended up in a shelter and came to me. So that was also sort of a tribute to her as well. And yeah,
Sure, go on.
yes, please. Yeah. No, no, I was just saying that getting it published was probably the most exciting thing that happened in my life at the point.
Sure. As a writer and illustrator, what is your process in creating work? Do you come up with the story first and then make illustrations that match the story afterwards, or is it vice versa? Do you draw, for example, the cat first and then go from there?
I generally have a story first. So it does vary depending on a project, but I usually have a story that I would like to tell, and I keep developing the storylines in my head. And by the point that I think I have a good storyline that's close to what I like, then I actually start drawing and writing at the same time. And that is actually the most exciting process because you tell so much of the story through the pictures, and the story has to be told in such a compact form of 32 pages. So no pictures or no words could be wasted. You have to use every single one of bit of both sides helping each other. They have to be very tightly working together. So I do draw and then write simultaneously. And it is really fun because you have to think visually when you're writing. And even when you're drawing, you are actually telling story through pictures. So yeah, like it just does happen all at the same time, one way or another.
Okay, and then a year after Cat on the Bus in 2017, you published No Kimchi for Me, which would eventually be the start of this expanded series, Yoomi, Friends and Family. This story is about a young girl named Yoomi who hates kimchi, and her older brothers tease her for it. How did this work come about?
It's it took a few years for me to develop the story. The start of it was that I just really wanted to do a story about kimchi because that's one of my favorite foods.
Right, kimchi
And
pancakes.
also I have, yes, kimchi pancakes. And I have always been fascinated by this like Korean tradition of eating savory pancakes on rainy days. I always wanted to do a story about it. And while I was developing the story, like because I wanted to make it more like child friendly, more universal experience for children, I just brought in this experience of myself, like not wanting to eat kimchi as a kid because I didn't like spicy food. And also another universal experience of a lot of children who want to prove that they are not babies. And especially for younger siblings. And I am the youngest of two. And I definitely do have an experience of wanting to be seen as a big kid. So they just all come together. But it actually took the longest of all my books that I worked on to come to that story. And I did get a lot of help from my editor too, because I was very focusing on food itself. But she helped me kind of like figuring out to tell the story of like universal emotions and experiences of children, of like food and siblings and family. So that was really, really long process, but also a fun process.
Right, so that goes beyond just learning about Korean kimchi, but about touching all kids from whatever background that they come from. The second book was about taekwondo, and then your third book, as we said, is about Yoomi discovering the joys of Koreatown. We can clearly see that in this series that Korean culture features heavily, and it seems important to you. Was it important for you to share that with people, and how open were publishers to this idea?
So when I was making that first book of the series No Kimchi for Me, it was such a beginning of my career. I wasn't even worried about if there would be a market for it. If I were to make that book again now, I think I would be thinking of the market, like if the readers will accept it, if I could sell the books. But I think I was actually fortunate that I didn't think of any of those. And also it came in a good timing that there were more realizations and recognitions among publishers that we do need to publish more diverse books and representing more diverse cultures. So I think I was lucky in that to make the book. And because that first book was accepted so well, which I think no one really expected to happen, but it was accepted really well. So the publisher offered a sequel. And that's when I actually thought of like what is really widely known in the United States, but not necessarily known as Korean. And there are a lot of Taekwondo dojangs in the United States, like a lot of them. It's very common, and many schools actually take it as a curriculum as well. So that I took a chance as kind of like making it known, like because they, like the kids here, they do use Korean language to learn Taekwondo. They count in Korean. They bow to like Korean flag when they enter dojang. So those things I thought they were very interesting. And also I did want Korean kids who grew up in the United States, like maybe they were born here or maybe they immigrated here. I did want them to feel proud of their Korean heritage. And yeah, that just kind of motivated me to work closely featuring Korean culture. But it was also important for me that they also feature very universal experience for all the children. Right. So even though it's very heavily like Korean culture related, still the main storylines are very universal.
Right. I think these are wonderful books that will speak to young Korean Americans or the Korean diaspora abroad in general, but they are fun works for all readers to enjoy. We should also point out at this point, though, that Yoomi and her family are actually anthropomorphized cats, and other characters are animals as well in this universe. Why did you decide to go with animals rather than draw people?
So when I was working on No Kimchi for me, it kind of happened by chance because I was making character studies, so different characters, and they were mostly kids actually. And then I had this one character study that featured the cats. And I thought actually featuring on animal characters would be felt more universal because kids don't necessarily recognize them as Koreans or other races. So especially because I am using this very culturally specific food like kimchi, I thought like making it a cat character would feel more universal for the kids from any background would pick up the book. And if I can make more people pick up the book, I thought it would be, you know, like more loved and more known. And I thought that would do a good job for the book. And I am actually really glad that I did, because I didn't even think of this when I was making it, but it was pointed out to me later that a lot of times when we see animal characters in a book, at least in the United States, they are considered to be white characters as a default, just because the culture is set in a way. So it is very rare that you'd set the animal character very culturally specific. So I was actually glad to hear that later. So yeah, but to be very honest, it started with me liking drawing cats. So it just worked in a best possible way, I think.
Sure. As you said, you own a cat as well, so you're clearly a cat lover. There were so many questions that I wanted to ask as well, but unfortunately we are out of time. Just very briefly, what's next for you? Will there be more adventures for Yoomi to come, or any other works that you're working on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do have a lot of ideas for Yoomi books, and I would love to continue making more books about Yoomi and friends and families and Korean culture, because there are so many fascinating elements in Korean culture I would love to share here. But my publishers would need to see the numbers of the sales because publishing isn't like business. And that does take them some time just to see what's happening with the books. But I have been getting a lot of good reactions. So hopefully I can have some good news in the near future about expanding the series. But in the meantime, I am actually working on a new book with a different publisher about Seoll날, Lunar New Year's Day celebrated in Korea, that I'm really, really excited about.
Well, we hope that all your works are very successful and we hopefully can see more of Yoomi's adventures down the line. We've been speaking to children's book writer and illustrator Aram Kim. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.